We have a massive update on the New York Islanders search for a GM and a president, and my first reaction to this news is, are you serious? Out of all the candidates available, is this really the direction that is best for the New York Islanders? I was really shocked when I saw this tweet by Arthur Staple, as we're going to get into, and Arthur Staple is very reputable because I have no doubt that this is the direction where the Islanders are going. We're going to break it down in just a second and why this top option that the Islanders seem to be considering is so polarizing. But before we do that, I do want to thank all 95 of you who are now subscribed to the channel. We are so close to our goal to hitting our first 100 subscribers. Appreciate all the support as we continue to post Islanders content every single day in what's going to be an incredibly busy offseason for the New York Islanders. And let's get right into it. We've been talking a lot on this channel about who our favorite candidates for the Islanders next GM or president is. We've had a lot of different opinions, and I really appreciate all your thoughts in the comments. And let me know in the comments really quick who you want to see be the next GM of the New York Islanders. Most of you have not been saying this top name as the Islanders' choice for GM. Arthur Staple has reported that with several people on the Islanders list, as of right now, the top candidate is Ken Holland. Ken Holland, if you don't know, is perhaps one of the most polarizing figures when it comes to GM in the NHL. There's no doubt that Ken Holland has an incredible resume. I mean, he's won several Stanley Cups with the Detroit Red Wings. He is a Hall of Famer. The issue is Ken Holland is very similar to Lou Lamoriello, and one of the big issues with Ken Holland, with the Detroit Red Wings, and then the Edmonton Oilers is he simply made bad decisions in the modern NHL era, and there's a lot of question on whether or not he can be a modern NHL GM in the cap era. Now, we do have other news on some of the other candidates, and several Islanders reporters are speaking on this, so I really believe this is down to a three-horse race. It seems like the Islanders have made contact with Montreal to have permission to speak to Jeff Gorton. We haven't really spoken about Jeff Gorton on the channel yet, and that's because I did not think Montreal would make him available. I still don't think the Montreal Canadiens allow the Islanders to talk to Jeff Gorton. If we get a report that they are going to let him interview, then we are going to make a video covering why I think he is one of the best fits for this job, as he has the perfect mix between the old school GM philosophies and also really embracing new school era GM analytics and all that fun stuff that fans really appreciate in this day and age. And then third, it seems like Marc Bergevin is definitely still a choice for the New York Islanders, but that is the position where the Islanders have a lot of competition, as it seems like the LA Kings are also interested in Marc Bergevin, and the Kings would definitely have the advantage since he is currently the senior advisor to Rob Blake, or at least he was before Rob Blake was removed as the GM of the LA Kings. It's notable that Rob Blake is not mentioned at all. It seems like the Islanders are looking to make this move quickly, especially now that they have the first overall pick in the NHL drafts. Can't believe we're 3 minutes in and we're not even talking about that because this GM decision is so huge. And a final note, which disappoints me a little bit, it seems like they are not really talking to Kekalainen, at least not yet. It's really good that we have not heard much on Chiarelli because he would be an absolutely abysmal choice. And unlike Holland, while I would not be thrilled just because of his resume, I do think Holland does have merits to be a GM in the NHL, while Chiarelli, even though he has a Stanley Cup, has been an absolute disaster everywhere he's went. And Arthur Staple does emphasize that all of this can change in an hour. And this is really what it seems like. It seems like we got no news, and then out of nowhere, every hour there seems to be new reports on what is going on with the Islanders GM search. It definitely sounds like they are closing in on candidates. And Chris Botta has also confirmed that with his sources, that he feels like the search is basically over. It's down to two or three candidates. And he is agreeing that it's going to be one of these big name candidates. In some of his other tweets, he was talking about how the Islanders might look for a candidate who's going to be just the GM and the president, but he still emphasizes that even though this person will be both the president and the general manager, it is still likely that they will be able to bring in other talent. The Islanders front office was barren. It was Lou Lamoriello, and it was just Lou Lamoriello and his son. It is pretty clear that this new GM and president is going to still bring in a couple AGMs and a couple people in other key positions, maybe an advisor. We'll see what that looks like when we get the hire. But Chris Botta is emphasizing that this is not going to be a one-man show, which is still a little encouraging. Although I do think this person keeping the GM position and the president position does kind of take the Islanders out of candidates like Mathew Barzal. Although we don't know, this might still be a better opportunity for some of the highly touted assistant GMs in the NHL, and we don't know their contract situations. The Islanders can still be very competitive on these guys like Mathew Barzal and Scott White, who would love the experience both to work under Ken Holland and also understand that at Ken Holland's age, they would likely get an opportunity sooner to be a GM. We'll see what happens. But right now, I really want to focus on what Ken Holland's career has been like and why I'm really questioning whether or not he is the best fit for the Islanders GM position. We're going to start with the bad. And there is a lot of bad when it comes to Ken Holland. And you're going to notice a lot of the bad with Ken Holland is really similar to the bad when it comes to Lou Lamoriello. Lou Lamoriello signing those long contracts with those no trade clauses, all that fun stuff. That's really why I'm questioning this decision, because Ken Holland really feels like Lou Lamoriello 2.0. To be honest, I do think he would do a better job than Lou Lamoriello, but it just seemed like it was the right fit to go in a different direction. And that doesn't seem to be what the Islanders are doing. Sorry about that. Press the wrong button. But first, we're going to talk about some of the worst contracts. The Campbell contract was an absolute disaster for Ken Holland. And to be fair, I thought Ken Holland was a pretty good goalie when it was signed. So for this one, I am going to give a partial pass. I do think $5 million per year was a lot of money. But the Oilers needed a goalie. And we're going to be really focusing on the Oiler moves here because the Detroit Red Wings moves happened so long ago. I really don't think they're that relevant to today's NHL. I mean, they're still important. Their history. He won Stanley Cups with the Red Wings, which you can't throw away. But it's just a different age with the salary cap and the way that the NHL operates with speed and oversize. It's a really different game. Again, Jack Campbell, he looked like a better goalie than he turned out to be for the Oilers. Complete mess with the Oilers. I don't want to be too critical of this, but this is just an example. He throws out a lot of money, and a lot of times these contracts don't work, and some of that is bad luck. And you're not going to have to worry about him signing bad contracts for goaltenders with the Islanders, because Ilya Sorokin has already signed, and he is an incredible goaltender, especially compared to somebody like Jack Campbell. But there is concern there. Next, the Nurse contract is really what Islander fans should be concerned about, because the Islanders have a situation that is really relevant to the Nurse situation. Noah Dobson is a restricted free agent this season. In many ways, Noah Dobson is kind of like Nurse. I do think Noah Dobson is a better player, but he really had a rough year last season. And Ken Holland signed Darnell Nurse to an insane contract that has aged so poorly. And you really hope that he's learned from this Nurse mistake if he is going to be the GM of the New York Islanders. No, I do not want to lose Noah Dobson, but the Islanders getting the first overall pick does change everything. They now have a chance to draft Matthew Schaefer, who, as we're going to talk about in a video later today, I think should be the Islanders' choice at first overall. I'm really worried that Ken Holland would sign Noah Dobson to a massive contract that he has not proven he's worth. Do I think Noah Dobson next season can have an incredible year and prove that he's worth $11 million as a defenseman? 100%. 2 years ago, I was ready to give Noah Dobson $11 million after his 70-point season. He's looked rough this year, and I'm just really worried that this is the type of move that Ken Holland seems to mess up. Next, we are going to talk about the Kassian disaster. Ken Holland seems to not be shy to give players too much money when he wants to keep them. And this Kassian situation really reminds me of Pierre Engvall, where he had a good 25 games with the Islanders, and Lou Lamoriello decided to lock him up for 7 years, $3 million. This was not as much. It was only a 4-year contract, but just another example of moves that don't make sense. And finally, while I said I wasn't going to talk about the Detroit Red Wings because it's so long ago, you have to point out he traded a 3rd-round pick in 2021 for a 4th-round pick in 2000. I was born in, sorry, not 2021, 2001. I was born in 2001, so this is very early, but this is just not good asset management. He might have fallen in love with a player in the 4th round that he really wanted. That player didn't work out. Weird trade, to be honest. We do have to talk about the good, though. I don't want Ken Holland to be the GM of the New York Islanders, but he definitely has his merits. I mean, the Hyman signing for the Edmonton Oilers was a huge signing. And to be honest, as we look at all 3 of these moves, to be honest, Ken Holland was a good GM for the Oilers. Yes, Oilers fans did complain about him. He did sign a couple bad contracts. But you know what? That team went to the Stanley Cup Finals before he left. It was an incredible team. And frankly, it was in big part due to his moves. Trading for Ekholm was a brilliant move, really giving the Edmonton Oilers a window they didn't, because he was able to understand they needed a defensive defenseman, and he got it. And Hyman was also a huge signing for them, scoring 50 goals. He does make good moves. He also did sign a good contract to Ryan Nugent-Hopkins. It's not all bad when it comes to Ken Holland. It just feels like it's going to be too much of the same. I will say, in terms of GM candidates, what you're going to get from him, it's going to be stable. He is going to make the Islanders a better team. Perhaps if you're hoping to tank next season, that is not going to happen. He's going to try to be competitive right away. But now that the Islanders do have the first overall pick, perhaps it makes more sense now to try to get back on track sooner. Let me know in the comments what you think about the prospects of the Islanders signing Ken Holland as the next president of hockey operations. Do you think it could work, or are you as nervous as I am about it? Again, I'm not going to judge the next GM of the New York Islanders until they actually make moves for the New York Islanders. I do think people can learn, especially people as gifted with the game when it comes to Ken Holland. You can learn from your mistakes, and we'll have to see if whoever the next GM of the New York Islanders is going to be, because all three of these GMs have had previous roles on teams. We'll see if they learn from their mistakes. That being said, if you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel. Be one of our first 100 subscribers. We are so close to hitting the goal. I am Patrick Nilan. This is Islanders Digest. Let's go, Islanders.